Courtney Hollenbeck, and welcome back to Women Taking on Sports, where we talk all things female athletes, from coaches, players, to even people working in the industry. And today we are lucky enough to be joined by Kentucky graduate, where she was also a 12-time All-American swimmer, Riley Gaines. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me on. This is special for a lot of reasons, one of which being ESPN2 in my home state of Tennessee. So thank you.
Woohoo! Yes. So you have so much to be proud of. As I mentioned, 12-time All-American swimmer, 5-time SEC champion, and record holder, not to mention a 2-time Olympic trial qualifier. So was it your plan from the beginning to swim at such a high level?
You know, I didn't really realize that this was a possibility until I turned about 15 or so years old. And that's when I started leading the nation in some of my events. It was at 15 years old, I qualified for my first Olympic trials. I went to that meet and I swam with the likes of Michael Phelps and Katie Ledecky and Ryan Lochte and the best swimmers in the world. And my eyes were really just open to the possibilities and the opportunities ahead of me. And that's when I really made it my goal to accomplish as much as I could, which is ultimately when I chose the University of Kentucky to continue my athletic career. And I couldn't have been more grateful for that decision.
Yeah. So I'm curious, where did your love for competition come from?
So I have a family full of athletes. My dad, he was an SEC football player. My mom, she played softball. My dad then went on to play in the NFL for a while. All of my uncles, they've won Super Bowls. My youngest brother, he's playing college football now. So I come from from this family that loves sports. We love competition, and to be totally honest, we love winning. And so from a young age, it was instilled in me to never back down, to always be a leader and do everything that you do, whether that be sports, whether that be academics, whether that be service, whether that be within your own faith, to do everything that you do to the best of your ability. Which I can now, looking back, say that I absolutely did that when, and especially in my collegiate years.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you really have such a great story, and I want to talk about your personal journey for a second. You competed at the NCAA women's swimming and dive competition, and you actually competed with Leah Thomas, a transgendered male swimmer. And when did you find out you were swimming against a male swimmer?
We did not find out about this until about midway through my senior year. I had made it my goal to win a national title, which would, of course, mean becoming the fastest female swimmer in my respective event in the country. And I was right on pace to do so. Until all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this person pops up, Leah Thomas, and is posting the fastest times in the nation by body lengths. And so, me also contending for that spot, I, of course, noticed this, and I was so thrown off because it's very rare to have someone leading the nation who you've never heard of, especially being at the point we were at. You knew everyone who's competing at that top level. You know each other, and if you don't know each other personally, you at least know each other's names. And so, this name, Leah Thomas, there was a lot of red flags surrounding it. I was looking up Leah Thomas on this USA Swimming database where times are
Right.
posted, and there was no record of Leah Thomas. And so lots of head scratching. But eventually, an article came out disclosing that Leah Thomas was formerly Will Thomas and swam 3 years on the men's team at University of Pennsylvania before deciding to switch to the women's team. And so when I heard this, I was so shocked. Of course, I was shocked. I thought this was so far fetched, but truthfully, I felt this sense of relief because I was then able to look up who Will Thomas was. I was curious, was this a lateral movement? Was this someone who went from ranking first in the men to now continuing to rank first in the women? Which is, of course, not what we saw. This was a mediocre male swimmer ranking 462nd nationally at best among the men the year prior. And so that's why I say I felt a sense of relief because I thought the NCAA would see it exactly how I saw it,
Right.
how we all saw it, but that's not how they saw it. About 3 weeks before our national championships in March of last year, they announced that Leah Thomas would, in fact, be competing with the women, and there was nothing that we could do about it.
Talk a little bit about what it was like swimming against Thomas. Was there just an obvious disadvantage?
Absolutely. Thomas, for one, is 6'4".
Mm.
I'm a mere 5'6". Swimmers on average are taller anyways. But to have someone in the lane next to you who towered over you. That was new for me. Not just height. Of course, there's other differences such as lung size, heart size, the size of your hands and your feet. Not to mention the testosterone levels that were nearly 20 times what we as women have. So there was obvious differences, even in terms of the technique that Thomas used. Men and women typically don't follow the same strategy when it comes to swimming. There's obvious differences there, and to be totally honest with you, Thomas stuck out like a sore thumb to everyone. You don't have to know swimming to even watch those races and see the outlier.
Exactly. Well, I understand that you tied a match with Thomas, but somehow you left without a trophy. Can you tell us what happened in that situation?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that first day of competition was the 500 freestyle, which is not an event that I do. And so I sat on the side of the pool and watched as Thomas swam to a national title, beating all of the Olympians, beating American record holders, the most impressive female swimmers the country has ever seen by body lengths. Thomas beat them. So that next day of competition, we come back, and it's the 200 freestyle, which was the event that Thomas and I competed in. And ultimately, it did end up in a tie. We went the exact same time down to the hundredth of a second. I think our time was like 1 minute, 43 seconds, and 52 100ths. And so upon tying, we get out of the water and we go behind the awards podium where typically you're marched out and you're handed a trophy and your name's an All American. And so we go behind there, and the official looks at both Thomas and myself and says, "Great job. But you guys tied, and we only have one trophy, and we're giving this trophy to Leah. Riley, you have to go home empty handed." And so I, of course, was taken aback by this. And I questioned this. Okay, I understand we tied, but why are you adamant on giving this trophy to Thomas? And the official looks at me and says, "Well, Thomas has to have the trophy for photo purposes. So you can pose with this one, but you have to give it back. You go home empty handed, and Leah takes the trophy home." And that's ultimately what thrusted me into a position of, well, first of all, I knew this was wrong prior to this. I knew the unfair competition was wrong. I knew us as women giving up our consent in areas of undressing like we did in that locker room. I knew that was wrong. But when they reduced everything that I and my teammates and all of the girls there had worked our entire lives for, down to a photo op to validate the feelings and the identity of a male, that's what thrusted me into this position of really just no longer being willing to lie and say and smile and step aside and allow this male onto our podiums claiming that he's a woman. I was no longer willing to lie.
Good for you. Is that kind of how the tables turned and you just decided to not stay silent on this issue anymore and you've become an independent women's forum spokesperson? What do you hope to accomplish?
Absolutely. My life plans have been absolutely rerouted and entirely changed from what I thought I was going to be doing. I was set to be in dental school this year, and clearly I'm not working on teeth. And so I have joined on with the Independent Women's Forum to really do everything that I can to advocate for protecting women and girls, not even just women and girls in sports, women and girls in general. We're seeing this overall systemic erasure of women and what it means to be a woman. Women are more than just the hair and the makeup and the nails and all of those things. Um, to understand womanhood, you have to be a woman. Therefore, I'm fighting for that. I'm fighting for this erasure. I'm getting in front of anyone who will listen to me. I'm putting myself in a position where we can no longer be ignored because when I'm speaking, it might seem as if I've been a lone voice and a lone face fighting for this, but I'm speaking for so many. I'm speaking for the past female athletes who fought relentlessly for Title IX. I'm speaking for every single girl um, at that NCAA D1 championships because we all felt the same. They all feel exactly how I'm sharing, and I know this because of conversations I've had. And of course, I'm fighting for that next generation of female athletes, and that's what I'm going to continue doing until opportunities for women are equal as Title IX was intended for it to be.
Absolutely. Once again, for those of you who are just joining us, we are talking to Riley Gaines, swimming superstar here on Women Taking on Sports. And my next question for you, Riley, is why do you think it's important to highlight women and sports?
There are so many benefits to women playing in sports that I don't think the general public realizes. And it's more than just athletic achievement. Actually, there was an Ernst& Young study that came out recently that said 94% of women who are C-level executives, so COO, CFO, CEO, 94 of those women were female athletes, which I think just shows the lifelong characteristics that you develop from playing sports. I truly accredit playing sports to giving me the leadership that I've displayed in fighting for this. It's given me the confidence to do this. It's given me the security to take the arrows that I've been taking. And I would do it 100 times over again. And really, that's because of playing sports. So there's so many value. There's so much value that I wish more people would realize. And that being said, I think everyone is deserving of that. Everyone deserves to play sports. By no means do I think that trans identifying individuals just shouldn't be able to play. It's just about playing where is fair and where is safe. And of course, that means competing with your biological sex.
Yeah, exactly. Well, how significant do you think it is that pro surfer Bethany Hamilton decided to speak out on this topic?
It's huge. Bethany Hamilton, she was really the first American professional athlete to take a stance on this. And she drew the line. She said, I will no longer be competing in the World Surf League so long as they're allowing men in our competitions. And that was huge. And I've talked with her a lot personally throughout this process. And I couldn't be more grateful to consider her a friend and an ally in this fight.
100%. Well, why do you think others stay silent?
Fear. They're fearful of this cancel culture that we live in. They're fearful to be labeled as any of the names they will throw your way, and I get called them all. They'll call you transphobic. They'll call you. I've gotten called for simply saying. Let me reiterate. For simply saying men and women are different, I get called transphobic, homophobic. Even sometimes they lump racist in there, which has nothing to do with what I'm arguing about. They see what happens to me when I go to San Francisco State University and talking about this. And I was met with a mob. I was ambushed. I was held for ransom for 3 hours. And they don't want to put themselves in that position. They don't want to lose their jobs or their scholarships or put themselves in a position where there's retaliation. And that's what these organizations and these universities, they're telling them there will be consequences if they speak out. So therefore, they remain silent. And again, it seems as if I'm speaking for the minority, but the overwhelming majority is standing alongside me.
Yes, exactly. And I know you mentioned in the very beginning of this interview just the way you were raised and being instilled to know the difference between right and wrong and know that you can stand up for what you believe in. So it sounds like you're following your heart. So that is exactly what you should be doing.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, I've enjoyed watching your journey. And how can we stay along with your journey and know what's happening next?
Absolutely. My Twitter, I try to always post breaking stories surrounding this topic. Again, surrounding the systemic erasure of women outside of just sports as well. And that's Riley_Gaines_. And also you can go to www.iwf.org and they have phenomenal resources regarding this, regarding what's happening with Title IX, regarding how to contact your state senators and state legislators. So they have a lot of amazing resources surrounding this topic on their website.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that information. And the very last question that I have for you today, Riley, is if you could tell a young girl thinking about getting involved in swimming competitively, what would you tell her?
Do it. There are lots of times where, of course, it's hard. It is a love-hate relationship, no doubt about that. And I can't even try and sugarcoat it. But the benefits outweigh the cons by tenfold. You develop the most amazing relationships. My teammates, they're my family. And of course, as I mentioned, the characteristics that are instilled is bar none. That really, it's I couldn't be more grateful for that time that I spent competing. And now that I'm done, I realize I took it for granted. So I encourage everyone to swim, play sports, and don't back down. Be bold, be empowered. It's liberating to stand firm in the truth.
Well, you heard it here first. I'm Lindy Hollenbach, and she is Riley Gaines, swimming superstar. And this has been another episode of Women Taking on Sports here on ESPN Chattanooga 95.3.